Hey guys, one of the things that I love is catching bass up close and personal on a big stick, and I call it flipping. It's really pitching, but I want to welcome you back to the channel, Project E. Today I hope to come out here and catch some bass flipping around trees, logs, stumps, and just show you what goes through my head as I approach each piece of cover. I'm going to break it down, hopefully catch some bass, and just tell you how I do it. Let's go, guys. Okay, here's my setup. I've got roughly I'm gonna say like a 7/16, 3/8 to ½ ounce weight. To me, this is a pretty critical component. I put some sort of little bead clacker in there because like when I'm sitting there jiggling it, it just makes some noise. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but I like that. I run a peg on it, but I don't ever peg it solid. I'll peg it 3-4 inches up the bait to where I can still have that noise. I've got just a 3/0 fusion hook. I'm using a small 4-inch power hog. I seem to get more bites on it. This color here is California. I rig it up like that. Straight shank hook to me is very critical in this scenario. I do not use an offset round bend. I use a straight shank hook. And on these power hogs, you always got to be sure to take these little tabs when they mold them. That kind of keeps everything curled up together. But that's my setup as far as my bait. You can kind of hear that noise. I like that. That's a key component for me. You know, I don't have to put a rattle in it. I like it. It kind of sounds like a crawdad. The other thing that I do is I put a little chartreuse on the tail. I think a lot of the times I'm imitating a bluegill with this style bait, and all bluegill have a little bit of chartreuse on their tail, and that's why I do it. There's no other reason other than I think it mimics a bluegill well. Now my setup, I've got an 8:3-to-1 gear ratio reel. This is a Platinum Johnny Morris Bass Pro reel. I think that's very critical because you got to be able to take that slack up in a hurry, especially if you're out of position. A high gear ratio reel. I've got 25-pound test on. There's no sense in having anything less. You can see about that far in the water. I've got a fairly heavy weight. It's a reaction strike. This is a 7/6 heavy action rod. Works really well for me. It's the Bass Pro Johnny Morris rod. It's what I use. That's my setup. I'm really happy with it. It works for me. When you're out there pitching, a mistake that I used to make, and I've seen a lot of people make, they get too much line out. I want that much line out. I want it to be just a little bit in front of my reel. I don't want it to be down here. I see a lot of people try to put it that far down, and what happens is when you go to flip it out, the first thing it does is hit the water and it spools your reel. So have the proper amount of line out. That's a real critical thing when you're trying to learn how to flip. That's the perfect amount. Anywhere right in there, that's the distance of your rod. That'll help you get started on pitching. I'm gonna try to keep saying pitching today because that's really what I'm doing, but I still like to call it flipping. One thing I want to do when I'm pitching and flipping targets, I want to determine a lot of times where they're relating to that target. You know, if it's a spring spawn type flipping, event, I don't like flipping right dead center in the middle of it. You know, whether it's a tree, a bush, whatever it is, because, a bass has to make a bed. That's 12 inches. It's going to have to at least be away from that target, in my opinion. So I like to pitch past it and bring my bait to it in a spawning event. Now, if I'm past the spawn and I feel like, they're relating to that piece of cover for shade or as a house, that's when I want to be as close to it as I possibly can, and I want to pay attention to, are they on the shady side? Are they on the down current side? Because you can duplicate that time and time again as your day progresses. There it is. Gosh almighty, he thumped that as it was falling. Not a big one, but really a good teaching point right there. I see a lot of guys, and I used to do it really bad too. I see a lot of guys, man, they've made their presentation into the piece of cover, and they think they can feel it. They're not watching their line. I never felt that bite. All I saw was my line jump, or sometimes you'll just see your line swimming off so slowly. especially in cold water situations, it's very, very important to watch that line. It'll give you a lot of bites that you might not feel. I'd be really shocked if we don't get bit on this tree. Golly, my line jumped a mile. Got them power poles down just in a nick of time. Hey, so one thing in flipping, you know, a lot of people ask fluorocarbon or braid. Here's the deal. I use braid only in grass. I use fluorocarbon all the rest of the time, 20, 25 pound test. That's what I'm gonna use, and let me tell you why. If I'm using braid on bushes or trees, it digs into the bark, it digs into the wood, and you will spend your whole day getting unsnagged. Just go with 25 pound fluorocarbon and you'll be great all day long. So now why do you ask if I use it in grass? So many times when you're flipping grass, your line goes straight down. So you flip in a hole of grass and it goes straight down. So I'm back here, like I'm right here, here's my line, and then my bait goes straight down in that hole. When I set the hook, I've got all this bow that I've got to get out. With braid having no stretch, you can get that really good hook set. Fluorocarbon has a little bit of stretch where braid doesn't, but for me, all the time, 100% of the time, wood, docks, anything other than grass, I'm flipping fluorocarbon. That's a better one. That's a better one. Golly, that is so much fun. Man, that's fun. I guess some people are addicted to drugs and golf and I don't know, all other things. I'm pretty much addicted to these things right here. Golly, it's coming at me. I can't stop it. Oh, it's a biggin. It's a biggin. I mean, that fish run right at me. That is so much fun. But I mean, I almost didn't catch that fish because I mean, it run out of there as hard. I mean, I still barely got it hooked. Look at this. I still haven't drove that hook all the way through its mouth. Look at that. Look right there, really close. I mean, my hook's all coming apart. But I mean, it wasn't even the barb. I never even got the barb through because he ran right at me. Golly, that is fun. Is that not fun? Hey, one thing I want to point out, like if I've got just tons of cover, let's say we're flipping willow trees, we're flipping logs, we're flipping whatever, one of them that I will always make an extra cast on or make sure I hit is what I call leaners, ones that lean at a 45-degree angle. You know, that's a prime example right there. I see a prime example behind me. In my mind, those logs that lean like this, there's shade underneath here. Everything else is vertical. There's just a little bit of shade. When I got one leaning, I've got lots of shade, and that bass can get right underneath it, and I will always make sure I get a leaner. If you're in the boat with your buddy, you pick that leaner before he does, because those are high percentages flips when you flip on those leaners. Hey, that fish right there is a prime example of, you know, a lot of times in the spring, when you're flipping, if you think about everybody going down the bank, let me let him release, I'm gonna make a point. They flip it in there, they lift it up, they let it go back to the bottom, and then they reel it in. But if you ever have seen a bass spawn, you know, the initial flip in, you know, when you're sight fishing, they swim off and then they'll come back. So there is certain times of the year when you're flipping shallow cover that if you can just hesitate, you know, count to 5 before you move it the first time and hop it twice before you ever pull it out. I've had tournaments where I've done that and it's just like night and day difference. You can flip down a bank and never get a bite, but if you can make yourself keep it in there 10 extra seconds, I mean literally count to 10, you know, keep it there for 10 seconds, you'll get way more bites and a lot bigger bites. Oh, come here, buddy. You're still hot as can be. Hey, one thing that I make a mistake a lot when I'm flipping. I will not have my rod in the right position. So always try to consciously think of something. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. So if I pitch it out there, it's real easy for me to, you know, I've got my bait and I've kind of hadn't got a bite in a long time. I get that rod way up here, you know, and I've got it up here. And when I get that bite, you reel down and you try to set the hook and it's almost dropping slack. So try to work your bait so much from like 9 to 10 to 10:30. Get it to there, then go back down. Don't learn from me. I get it out of position. That's way too high. It's a bad rod position. You end up dropping a lot of slack to them. You end up losing a lot of fish, rushing the hook set when you really don't need to. But remember to have your rod in the right position. Oh gosh, that's a cool fish. Golly, that's fun. Get in the boat, buddy. Here's my thinking on the entry. You hear so many people talk about quiet entry, quiet entry, quiet entry. This is when I think quiet entry is important. If it's dead slick, calm, and clear water, yes, then I think you want to be, you know, a little more quiet. But if I got a little ripple on the water like I do now, I don't think quiet entry is near as important as just being accurate. Gosh, it's a big one. It's a big one. Oh, gosh, it's a big one. Come here, you big old girl. Golly, that's fun. It just doesn't get any better than this. I mean, heaven's gonna be awesome, but this has gotta be really, really close. Oh, come here, fish. Come here, fish. Oh, don't you wanna jump in the boat? Oh, come here, come here. Golly, I'm trying to get a hold of you. Come here, come here, come here, come here, come here. Oh, 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 oh. Gotcha. Yes, that's so much fun. Oh, that's fun. Golly, that's fun. Hey, one thing I want to make a point about is the bait. You can look here in the bottom of my boat. I've used everything. In my mind, when I'm flipping shallow cover, I don't want a big, bulky bait. I want a bait that I'm going to get a good hook set in. You know, I like smaller baits. You know, I'm flipping the General, I flip the Critter Hog, I flip the Power Hog. All those are slender. You know, I like a smaller bait to get a good hook set. Gosh, come out of there, fish. Hey, something that I think super important, guys, that I just want to make sure you get. It is so important when you pitch a bait up to a tree, a stump, a dock piling, let it fall on slack line. You want to have slack, because if your line's tight as that bait's falling, you're pulling it away from the base of it. So important. Be sure it falls on slack line. Oh, this is a good one. Golly, this is a good one. Dadgummit. Holy smokes. Golly. Stay on there, fish. Look at this one. Look at that one. Would you look at that fish? Look at that fish. Holy smokes, that's a full-grown behemoth. Come here, fish. Come here. 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 Open your mouth. Looky there. Oh. That is so much fun. Yes. 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 Hey, I've given you a bazillion tips in this video, but if you're going to take one from it, I want it to be accuracy. I want you to become better in your yard. I want you to make practice in your yard, because that's such a big deal to be accurate when you're flipping. What a fish. It's so much fun. Golly, especially when you get a big one like that. Thank you, fish. Oh, never gets old. That is so much fun, that moment of impact, and you're just, I just love it. Man, what fun that was. I'm going to kind of just recap the mistakes I made, because, you know, that's how we learn, from our mistakes. You know, there's a couple times I was out of position on a hook set. There's once that I know I threw slack to a fish. But, you know, all in all, I felt like, you know, there's a couple times, I can't say that, I was going too quick. That's probably my biggest mistake I made today. that I was going too quick, and it really cost me one really big fish in general. But all in all, what a great fun day. Tons of used stuff. You know, I got the General Green Pumpkin Blue Flash. I got the General Green Pumpkin Candy. I started off with the Critter HAWG Watermelon Red. I used the Critter or Power HAWG California. Man, I just ran out of plastic. I don't carry a lot of plastic in my boat, but what a fun day. I hope that helps your flipping. There's nothing better, but if you take anything from it, guys, get better in your yard. Practice in a cup, practice getting good in your yard, because then you won't get frustrated when you get out here. It's such a critical deal to practice in your yard. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you had as much fun as I did. Tune in next week for Project D, and if you liked it, please hit the subscribe and like button.